Welcome to this deep dive. We're looking into a really fascinating, complex situation today.
Absolutely. A ceasefire between Israel and Iran is technically holding, but the story's coming out.
Exactly. They couldn't be more different, could they? What actually happened seems completely up for debate.
Depending on who you ask.
So our mission today is to, well, unpack these conflicting accounts, look at some surprising political moves, and maybe glimpse what's next for diplomacy.
Trying to cut through that noise for you.
Hopefully help you understand what really matters for, stability in the region. Okay, let's get into it.
Where do we start? The competing claims.
Yeah, let's start there. Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. His reemergence was quite dramatic.
On state TV, wasn't it? Pre-recorded.
Pre-recorded, yeah, from somewhere undisclosed. And he came out claiming a huge victory over Israel.
Called the strikes a hard slap to the U.S., I believe.
That's right. And he didn't just imply victory. He explicitly congratulated the Iranian nation on defeating Israel, crushing Israel, and defeating the United States.
Very strong language. No ambiguity there.
None. And he also tackled the U.S. airstrikes on Iran's nuclear program head-on.
What did he say about the damage?
He really downplayed it, said they did not inflict significant damage. And he basically dismissed the whole nuclear enrichment issue as just an excuse for an attack.
So essentially framing the conflict around external aggression, not their nuclear activities?
Obviously, his message was firm.
Yeah.
We will not surrender. Whether it's about enrichment, human rights, missiles, doesn't matter.
Uncompromising.
And he even took a shot at President Trump's earlier statements. Claimed Iran's own attack on that U.S. base in Qatar, El Udeid,
Yes.
did cause damage, and Trump's response was just showmanship.
Okay. So that's the Iranian narrative. Victory, minimal damage, defiance. How does that stack up against the U.S. and Israeli versions?
Well, it's a completely different picture. America's top intelligence official, CIA Director John Radcliffe,
Right.
he stated Iran's facilities were severely damaged,
Yeah.
said their nuclear program was set back by several years.
Several years. That's significant. Did he say destroyed?
He specifically fell short of saying that it had been completely destroyed. But then you have President Trump.
And other officials.
Yes, repeatedly claiming Iranian sites were completely obliterated, that the nuclear industry was destroyed, quote, no nuclear weapons capability.
Obliterated versus severely damaged and set back. That's quite a gap already.
A huge gap. And an Israeli assessment seemed to back up the stronger U.S. line. They said U.S. bombing plus their own attacks.
Combined efforts.
Set back by years, Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons. So matching that year's time frame.
Okay, so U.S. and Israel broadly aligned on significant damage, maybe differing on the exact level between severe and obliterated.
But then, and this is where it gets really interesting, there was that leaked Pentagon assessment from earlier.
Right, I remember that. What did it say?
It suggested the program had only been set back by a few months.
Months, not years.
Months. So now you have 3 different official or semi-official assessments floating around: obliterated, sent back years, set back months.
That's confusing, to say the least. And Netanyahu, what was his line?
He stuck firmly to the effective strikes narrative, claimed the whole 12-day conflict had successfully eradicated both the nuclear and ballistic missile threats.
Eradicated.
Yeah.
Even stronger than obliterated, perhaps.
So you've got the Ayatollah saying facilities are basically fine, and Trump and Netanyahu saying they're gone, eradicated, obliterated.
It's hard to imagine 2 more different realities being described.
It really is. How do we even process that?
Well, there are independent voices trying to bridge this. Hassan Ahmadian in Tehran offered something more nuanced.
Okay, what was his take?
He acknowledged Iran definitely suffered a lot. Infrastructure, defenses, they were hit, no question.
So admitting damage, unlike the Supreme Leader's public stance.
Exactly. But he also pointed out that Iran did retaliate, move towards, quote, proportionality by the end. And he noted Trump himself said the last couple of days were devastating for the Israelis.
Right, a more balanced view of the back and forth.
Ahmadian thinks the Ayatollah's victory talk is partly because Netanyahu's big initial goals, whatever they were announced as, did not materialize.
Interesting. So victory by default almost, because the enemy didn't achieve their stated aims.
Potentially. And on the nuclear program specifically, Ahmadian says calling it done with is a bit of an exaggeration.
Oh, okay.
He states it's still unclear what happened and it's still being assessed inside Iran.
So not obliterated, not fine, but damaged to an unknown extent.
That seems to be his reading. And he points to the European E3, France, Germany, UK calling for negotiations.
Because why negotiate if the program is truly gone?
Precisely. Their call for talks implies the program is still there functioning, even if it took some damage.
Okay, that adds some crucial perspective. But still, these vastly different core beliefs about the facts.
Yeah.
What does that mean for actually talking, for diplomacy?
Well, it makes it incredibly difficult, doesn't it, if you can't even agree on the basic state of play.
And President Trump had sounded quite optimistic about talks, almost casual about it.
He did. He mentioned talks happening next week, made it sound easy, like, just going to hand them a piece of paper, they're going to sign it.
Because in his view, there was nothing left to negotiate about regarding the nuclear program, right? He thought it was destroyed.
Exactly. No need for deep, lengthy negotiations if the main issue is already resolved by military action, in his assessment.
But then you have the Ayatollah statement we just discussed.
Which sounded, as you said, very uncompromising. Directly challenging the U.S. view on damage, saying Iran won't surrender, that's hardly a promising prelude to easy talks.
It really isn't.
And, it's not even clear if Iran speaks with one voice on this internally.
How so?
Well, you get different signals, don't you? The foreign ministry wing might sound one way, but the more hardline elements in the political establishment, they sound different.
So, mixed messages coming out of Tehran itself about readiness to negotiate privately, perhaps?
It certainly seems possible, and the Supreme Leader's speech itself got mixed reactions inside Iran. Some critics felt it was disconnected from reality. Others felt, well, it was exactly what you would expect from the Supreme Leader of a country who's just emerged from war. A rallying cry.
Right, so internal debate as well. But then, something else happened just this morning.
Oh, what's that?
Pretty major development, actually. That parliamentary bill in Iran to suspend cooperation with the IAEA, the UN nuclear watchdog.
Yes, that's been discussed.
It's been ratified by the Guardian Council. It's law now.
Wow, okay. That definitely complicates things.
Complicates things. It could completely scupper any hope of the talks Trump was hinting at, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Suspending cooperation with the nuclear inspectors.
It certainly sends a very strong signal. What's the thinking behind that timing, do we know? Ahmadian perhaps commented.
Ahmadian did offer a rationale, connecting it to the bigger picture, to the treaty itself.
The NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Exactly. Iran's cooperation with the IAEA falls under that treaty. Iran's the signatory.
Oh.
And from their perspective, they were, quote, surprised to see their nuclear sites, which were under IAEA supervision,
monitored sites
by two nuclear powers, the U.S. and Israel. And crucially, the IAEA apparently did not even issue a statement of condemnation.
So Iran sees that lack of condemnation as the IAEA failing its side of the bargain under the treaty.
That seems to be the core of it. They felt the IAEA's last announcement was actually used as an excuse for the war against them.
So if the watchdog isn't providing protection or even condemnation when monitored sites are attacked?
Then why cooperate? They feel the IAEA is asking a lot, but not providing Iran with its rights under the treaty. So they're pulling back cooperation.
That puts the entire international oversight mechanism in a very precarious position, doesn't it? And certainly puts a damper on near-term negotiations.
Absolutely. Okay, so diplomacy looks tricky. Let's shift gears to the last piece. This really unexpected intervention by Donald Trump.
Into Israeli politics, you mean?
Yes. It follows that earlier report of a, quote, tense exchange between Trump and Netanyahu right at the start of the ceasefire.
Where Trump reportedly told Netanyahu to call back Israeli planes heading back to Iran after some perceived violation.
That's the one. Seemed quite tense then. But now
it looks like he's trying to patch things up very publicly.
Very publicly. He put out this, extraordinary posting on his Truth social network.
What did it say?
Calling Netanyahu a great wartime prime minister, a warrior, and saying Netanyahu's facing a ridiculous witch hunt.
Wow. Strong praise, and directly referencing Netanyahu's domestic legal issues.
He went even further, said they went through hell together.
Yeah.
Netanyahu could not have been better, sharper, or stronger.
Reasserting their partnership during the conflict.
And reiterating that narrative we discussed, the elimination of Iran's nuclear weapons, fighting for Israel's survival.
Okay. But the witch hunt comment, that seems pointed.
Extremely. Trump explicitly intervened in Netanyahu's ongoing corruption trial. Netanyahu is set to be back in court next week on those charges.
And Trump's weighing in on that.
Directly. Called the trial politically motivated, a horror show. Said it ought to be canceled or that Netanyahu should be pardoned for it.
Pardoned? in another country's legal system.
Called it a travesty of justice. And then this line, after saving Israel, the U.S. will now save Benjamin Netanyahu.
That is staggering, as you said. For a former U.S. president to say about the legal proceedings in a close ally, a country meant to have an independent judiciary.
It's a really significant statement about maybe a changing view of international norms and judicial independence.
Highly personalized foreign policy, perhaps.
So summing all this up, what we've really seen in this deep dive is just how fundamentally different the constructed realities are.
Absolutely. Conflicting narratives are one thing, but this is different versions of basic facts. What was damaged, whether talks are possible, even how international law and domestic trials should work.
Leaders presenting totally opposing views on events and outcomes. The truth just seems completely contested.
Which really underscores the need for you, listening, to constantly consider multiple perspectives, to question the assumptions behind each narrative.
Yeah. Given how far apart the main players are on what even happened, how can the international community, how can you assess the situation and figure out what's next for stability?
That's a huge challenge.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with.
Yeah.
What are the long-term consequences? When the fundamental facts of a major conflict are just, profoundly disagreed upon by the nations involved, what does that mean for the future?
Definitely something to mull over.